Oh my goodness, it's time to review tech in the USA. It's tech time, boys and girls.
Skip it up and that up.
So I think in every single video I have made for the past 6 months and every single live stream I've had for the past 4 months, the main question I've been getting over and over and over again in my live streams and in my videos is what TV or monitor should I get for next-gen consoles? What's a TV that's HDMI 2.1 compatible or a monitor that is HDMI 2.1 compatible that will work with the PS5 or Xbox Series X? Well, the bad news is right now, there's no monitor that has the HDMI 2.1 spec. Now, the cool thing about the Series X is if you have a 1440p monitor that is capable of high refresh rates and it has an HDMI 2.0 input, you can use your Series X at 1440p 120 on your 1440p monitor and it will work. That has been confirmed. On the PlayStation 5, I'm going to assume it's the same thing, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So if you have a 1440p monitor you're happy with and it has 120 hertz or higher, you're good to go. That's all you need. Don't need to get another TV or monitor. But for you other sailors out there who want a 4K 120 TV, HDMI 2.1 compatible, no questions asked, well, I got a recommendation for you. But the first TV I had, which didn't work properly, wasn't defective, does work. Austin Evans confirmed it. Let's talk about that TV first. So the first TV I got was the LG Nano 85 49-inch TV, and I have an RTX 3080. Card works fine. I've used it on the Sony X900H, which is the TV I'm recommending, and I've used it on my 2019 LG B9, and 4K 120 works all day. There was an issue with my operating system. I'll get into that with another video in case you have a problem. Say you want to buy a 3000 series graphics card or now the 6000 series new AMD cards. If you have a problem, this may be the solution, and it's a pretty ridiculously easy fix. It's just time consuming. But anyway, LG B9 worked great. I had the 49-inch Nano 85 TV from LG. Twice I got it to work at 4K 120, and twice I got it to work at 1440p 120, and then it was just everything was either no signal or green and pink. Now, there wasn't anything wrong with the HDMI input on that TV. If you had 4K 60 standard dynamic range, worked fantastic. It just, there needs to be another firmware update. But Austin Evans had that same TV, and again, it was working on the Xbox Series X at 4K 120. So if you want to get that for the Series X and probably the PlayStation 5, you'll be good to go. Now, will it work with an RTX 3080 card or a HDMI 2.1 graphics card in the future? That's the thing, because HDMI 2.1 right now, at best, is a mess. And there's a lot of TV manufacturers and home theater receiver manufacturers saying, oh, don't worry, we'll patch it with the firmware update. We promise it'll work. And then there's issues between consoles with the HDMI 2.1 supposedly compatible receivers, and it can't transfer HDMI 2.1. It's an absolute disaster right now. But if you're just going from a console to a TV, my recommendation today, I think, is a good choice. And the TV that I recommend, and this is the model in the States, is the 55-inch Sony X900H. This TV just got a firmware update. I know it works. I've been testing it, where ports 3 and 4, the HDMI 3 and 4 ports, have HDMI 2.1. And in the future, now it's just 4K 120, but in the future with another firmware update, they're going to be adding auto low latency mode and variable refresh rate. Not available now, just the ports on this X900H TV from Sony. They do 4K 120, but other features are going to be added in the future. And if it can handle the 4K 120, you're good to go. Everything else will work okay with future firmware updates. So let's go over the aesthetics of the TV first. It has a nice clean look. There's one complaint I have: the silver lining around the TV. If you have it in a dark room, I could see that maybe if you have some kind of reflection off of something being a little distracting, but at that point I'm just nitpicking. I think the TV looks fine. The one thing that they did with the television, and you'll see it here, is they have the legs spread real wide. Now, the function reason that they did that was so you could put a sound bar in between the legs of the television. I rather have that the legs are a little bit narrower and I could put it on a smaller table or piece of furniture and put the sound bar in front. I mean, I get why they did it. It'll definitely look neater and cleaner, but it was a pain in the ass to find. So I had to actually get a fold out plastic table to test this TV, because other tables that I normally use 55-inch TVs on in the past anyway, it wouldn't fit on there. The TV would have fallen over because the legs are spread too wide. Now, the good thing is because this is a backlit LED panel and not OLED, it's a VA panel, that you don't have to worry about burning. The downside to this is that you have to have backlights to light up the panel. You have LED backlights, which means in dark scenes or if you have text on the television with a black background, you're going to see blooming. You'll see it right here. I brought the ISO of my camera up super high so you could see. And as I move the mouse across the screen, you'll see the different quadrants. There's 32 quadrants of LEDs on this television. You'll see each one lighting up. Sony has some of the best backlighting in the business, but only having 32 quadrants on a 4K TV, you're going to see each of them light up. And as I move the mouse, you're seeing it. It's nowhere near as bad in person. I exaggerated it while filming so you could see the quadrants light up. But needless to say, that sometimes is a deal breaker for some people. And that's why consumers spend more money on OLED, because OLED is the blackest of blacks because it's a self-emitting diode. So anyway, I'll have links in the description to HDTV test video, many others out there. I'll put a couple in the description where they go into extraordinary detail about all the different tech specs of this television. And it gets rave reviews all around. HDR, I think, leaves a little bit to be desired. I was expecting it to be a little bit more contrasty, but then again, I'm coming from an OLED, and that may me being an OLED snob. Don't you ever do that again. But all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the television, and I have an OLED, and I still think it has a beautiful picture, and it does have some of the most even backlighting I've seen on an LED backlit TV probably ever, which is pretty impressive. Now, as you see behind the TV, there are 4 HDMI inputs. HDMI 1 and 2 are not going to handle HDMI 2.1, and HDMI 3 and 4 are going to handle HDMI 2.1. But first, before you get all bonered and ready to go with your new TV and enjoy your Xbox Series X in the next couple of weeks, there's a couple things you got to do. You got to make sure you update the firmware. Let's start with that. The first thing you're going to want to do when you get your X900H is update the firmware. Because if you don't update the firmware, you ain't getting HDMI 2.1. So you're going to go to Settings, you're going to go to Device Preferences, then you're going to go to About, and then you'll see System Software Update, and then you go there to check if there are any updates, which there will be. Once you download that, then your HDMI 3 and 4 ports on this TV will be HDMI 2.1 compatible. Just keep in mind right now, it just supports 4K 120 and EARC. You are not going to get auto low latency mode and variable refresh rate yet. That's going to come in a future update. Then once your TV is updated to its newest firmware, you're going to go to Settings, Watching TV. Then you're going to click External Inputs, and then you're going to go to HDMI Signal Format. And on HDMI 3 and 4, you're going to want to put it on Enhanced Format, but there's 2 different settings there. Click on HDMI 3 and 4, and you'll see this. It will have Enhanced Format, which gives you 4K 120, 10-bit, and then you have Enhanced Format Dolby Vision. If you want to use Dolby Vision, you're not going to get 4K 120. It's going to be locked at 4K 60. But once you set HDMI 3 and 4 to the enhanced format, which again is the 4K 120 option, not Dolby Vision option, your TV will then be capable of outputting 4K at 120 FPS. And then from there, I hooked up my TV, the X900H, to my RTX 3080 rig, which has an i9 9900KS, the RTX 3080, of course, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. And I tested a few games, and holy crap, it was a borderline life-changing experience. Now, like I said, I've experienced this before with my LG B9, but that was the first time I played a high refresh rate game on a big screen television. And man, is it something. Once you play any game at 4K 120, you won't want to go back. I played Doom Eternal. I played Far Cry 5. I played Halo 3. I even played some old games like Fear 3 and Dead Space, the original Dead Space. And they worked at 4K 120 just fine. And it even breathes new life into old games. I considered Fear 3 a pretty good game, but compared to the original Fear, it didn't hold a candle. Now going back and playing it at 4K 120, it's like playing a different experience. And that's the thing. So that's why I feel comfortable recommending this TV, because the other updates will come in the future, but they got 4K 120 working. It works great with my RTX 3080. And once you start gaming at 4K 120, you feel quicker response times. You notice the huge difference in the refresh rate. And there was a time I was that guy who rather have lower FPS and higher visual fidelities. Now I'm the other way around. Even if I have with my 3080 have to put, if say there's an ultra setting or a super high setting, I rather play even on my 3080 the game at high or even some medium settings to make sure I can maintain a solid 4K 120. I think with next-gen consoles, beyond all the other features, that 4K 120 is going to be the watershed new tech. And I assure you, for you guys out there who haven't gamed on a PC, who haven't witnessed this yet, you're going to feel the same way too. Beyond fighting games, any game just feels better, unless it's like a turn-based RPG or something like that where it could run at 10 frames a second and you wouldn't notice. It's game-changing, man. No pun intended. Now, this TV, I'll have 2 links in the description. I'll have a link to the 55-inch that I got, and I'll have a link to the 65-inch. Yes, those will be affiliate links, but I wouldn't put a TV I didn't recommend, and Sony is not sponsoring this video. So if you really want a TV that's affordable, you don't have to worry about burn-in, has a great picture, and is HDMI 2.1 ready, I can't recommend the Sony X900H enough. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
Hey, if you enjoy my content, consider becoming a Review Tech USA member. I'll have a link below in the description. I live stream now on this channel all the time, and it gives you access to cool emoticons to use as well while I live stream. Again, link below in the description. Thank you for your continued support.